Hey everybody. Now, as you all know, I played Borderlands 4 and I had a lot of issues with it. I already have a video. You can watch it, link in the description. Just talking about all the issues that I had. Aside from the several crashes, which is what prompted me to refund the game, it's insane that a game like this needs forced DLSS or frame generation in order to work at an acceptable frame rate, because to me and to many others that I've seen online, nothing less than 60 frames per second is acceptable when you have a top of the line machine. And I do have a top of the line machine. I have a 5090 and I have a 16 core AMD CPU, 64 gigs of RAM. I know I could have more RAM. All my hard drive are M.2 drives. So this game should be running at least, at minimum, not that I would like it, but at minimum at 60 frames per second, and it doesn't. It needs frame generation to even get past 50 frames per second if I want to play on the highest settings. And I think it's very interesting, all the things that I have seen posted online by Randy Pitchford about this game. I know he tends to be a little bit crazy when it comes to social media. Not the first time from what I've heard. So you see, he has this tweet thread or X post, whatever you want to call it, justifying and just making recommendations about how to better run the game. Again, this should not be a thing. The problem is, I remember when before all the problems started to come out, he said that it was because gamers expected to run a brand new game on old hardware, which I was agreeing with. Like, you're not supposed to, be wanting to run the newest open world game 4K 150 frames per second if you have like 4 or 5 year old hardware. But we are having people that have brand spanking new hardware from current year that can't run this game at the highest settings with more than 50 frames per second. That is not excusable. And aside from all the tweeting that Randy Pitchford has been doing, apparently there's been some announcement that he's done. So there's this article where it says Borderlands 4 boss Randy Pitchford tells players to stop being 4K stubborn. What in the world? Says it looks amazing at 1440p and the trade-off for frames isn't worth it. Randy Pitchford says 1440p is the sweet spot for Borderlands 4. This is the same excuse that I remember from not too long ago, where a lot of developers were saying, well, you should be fine with 30 frames per second because the human eye can only perceive so much, and 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second don't make a difference. It does make a huge difference. My non-gamer wife can tell, my 70-year-old father can't tell the difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. So that was a ridiculous take, and I think we got a new ridiculous take, which is 1440p is a sweet spot for a video game. And if we keep reading the article, we can see like more and more suggestions. Again, it's been a while since I've seen a game that instead of people coming out and saying, yeah, we're going to try to fix it, they're just spewing out like, do this, do this, do this. Toggle off hardware ray tracing, which again, this is why do games have this? Disable volumetric fog. Yeah, volumetric fog can usually be a big consumer, but here is the big one. This is what they were trying to get to. Use DLSS if your card supported, especially at higher resolutions. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, about why this line right here is really important. Now, if we keep reading, Pitchford added, if you're trying to run Borderlands 4 at 4K with every setting maxed out, but you are doing it on a GPU that's a few years old, you're probably not going to have a great time. Randy, I have a GPU that released this year and it doesn't break 60 frames per second. He explained that Borderlands 4 built in Unreal Engine 5 is extremely demanding. Okay, whose fault is that? Yeah, whose fault is that? And while some players are determined to max everything out, the performance hit isn't worth it for most people. When I hear that this game is extremely demanded, I don't get it. Where is the demand? I showed you, if you watch my previous video, how flat the geometry is. The textures are not higher than 4K, so you don't need, yes, there's a lot of visual effects running. Yes, there is a lot of characters running at one certain point, but that doesn't justify the amount of hardware this game required. Now he keeps going and says, I know a lot of you are dead set of playing 4K with ultra max settings and using 2 or 3-year-old hardware. Do you? But Borderlands 4 and UE5 are doing a lot, and for me, that trade-offs for frame, it's not worth it. I play at 1440p, setting super high, and I am super happy with the trade-off. The game looks amazing at 1440p. Again, this is the same level of excuse that we got not too long ago when developers came out and saying like, you know, get used to running your game at 30 frames per second because that's how it can run and it looks great and you shouldn't be asking for more. We also have another article from September 14, Twixy Voxel, saying Gearbox CEO, all these articles are going to be in the description down below for you to check it out. It says Gearbox CEO suggests refunds for Borderlands 4 players with outdated PCs. So he's going to the level of if you can't run a game to your liking, then refund it, which is the same that I've heard other developers say. If you don't like our game, don't buy it. It's never, marketing wise, this is never something that you should announce. But if we keep reading, this is the article that has the meat and potatoes of why they are doing this. Speaking on Twitter/X, Pitchford emphasizes that Borderlands 4 was built to push current generation hardware, particularly with the UE5 capabilities. So this is what's going on. This game was built around pushing frame generation. This is something that when I made that video, I had a theory that this was the case. This is pretty much confirming what I thought, is that this game was made to push people to frame generation. So they buy new hardware so they can do the frame generation, because unless you have a 40 GPU, like I have a 3090 on my other computer that doesn't do frame generation. So I have a 3090 is a great GPU. It has a lot more power than many GPUs on the 40 and the 50 series. And that thing cannot run DLSS because it doesn't have the frame gen course, AI course, whatever you want to call it. So yes, this is a push for people to go get new hardware because they want you to use frame generation. They want players to know that frame generation is the way of the future, which I disagree a lot, by the way. It shouldn't be this way. I think frame generation is going to be a detriment for the industry, but we'll see what happens. I'm not saying this art style sucks. I'm saying the art style lends itself to be well optimized because you are basing more things on the textures than on lighting, than on reflection, than on geometry. If you see, again, I'm still bringing the same point over and over because the landscape in the game, the landscape is the floor that you see when you are outside of any dungeon. When you are in the overworld, the landscape is a tool that exists in Unreal Engine 5 that allows you to create these large worlds. The landscape is flat. It doesn't have tessellation. There is a way to create tessellation on the landscape. There is a way to increase resolution on the landscape. And if you see their models, again, I show this on the rocks of the game, you can see that the rocks don't have a lot of geometry for you to say, this needs a beast of a PC. Pitchford stressed getting a refund in the game if not running well. If you discover that your system can't run the game well by accident or wishful thinking, which is him making fun of your customers, not good, and or you don't want to try to mess with the settings to make good enough for you, please use the refund feature on Steam. Then it says the CEO also took a defensive stance when challenged about the reliance on upscaling and performance optimization. There you go. It's more to what I keep saying. Responding sarcastically to one critic, he suggested that anyone dissatisfied with current approaches to graphics rendering should attempt to code their own engine. I think the proof is in the pudding, or in the CEO's words, that this game was made to push frame generation. Maybe they got a cut from Nvidia, or maybe Epic was with them saying that, you know, they need to push DLSS because we need to get gamers accustomed to new technologies. See, back in the day, we had an issue when the 20 series came out because those were the first cards to have the real-time ray tracing cores, which to me have been a blessing. I've been a big supporter of real-time ray tracing because for what I do 3D animation as my day job. It's good. It has been an amazing tool to use, and that's why I keep upgrading my equipment. But when it comes to video games, a lot of people were not happy of this new real-time ray tracing technology, and I was one of them. I don't agree using real-time ray tracing in video games because the trade-off, the amount of hardware that you need to run this, it's too much, and the beautifications that you get versus the other techniques, it's not that great. Barring reflections, which there's some smoke and mirrors that you can do in game engines. But just like they did back in the day with RTX, they are doing it now with frame generation. And I've seen some big YouTubers like Luke Stevens saying that, well, you know, it's what developers are using now, so we need to get used to that. The problem and the difference between ray tracing and frame generation is that real-time ray tracing was actually trying to make games look better. When it comes to frame generation is not there to make the game look better. It's there to give the developing studio more leeway when developing. And I really dislike when people use like, oh, it's gonna make developers lazy. So, no developer is lazy. The industry is too saturated with talent for anyone to be lazy. If you're lazy, you're out of a job, and there's a line of 1,000 people ready to take that job. So no, it's not because the developers are lazy. It's because when studio sees there is a technology like frame generation, what they're going to do is, okay, you no longer have a budget for a year of optimization. Your budget is now 6 months or 3 months. And you no longer have 500 people that you can use to optimize this game. You now have 100. Frame generation is a crutch. It's not something that is helping video games be better. It's just a crutch. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on AI frame generation? Do you agree with it? Do you think frame generation is great? Or do you think frame generation sucks and is the worst thing ever? Let me know in the comment section down below. As usually, you know I'm there. I'm usually replying. As long as you keep it civil, we can have a conversation about it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point. Remember to leave a like because it goes a long way for this video getting out. Subscribe if you haven't, because I have more videos coming in. There's another episode of the talk that I had with Wild Dogs, and this one is going to be about everyone's favorite subject, TIA. So make sure you subscribe and ring that bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.